Good morning. It is Thursday, September 17th. We are going to talk about two very important things today. Yesterday, you talked about summarizing. You watched a video and took some notes of summarizing, and I wasn't here. If you haven't done that, you need to go back and look at yesterday's assignment. Make sure you get it done. There is an announcement on Canvas for the number 1 assignment, the bell ringer, that we're skipping that for today because of time. We have two very important things that we need to do in about 35 minutes. So we're going to be rocking and rolling. This is going to be very fast paced. You need to stay with me. When you did summary yesterday, there was another teacher's voice, but this is the strategy that you went through. Somebody wanted but so. Does anybody have any questions about that strategy? About how you write a summary of a fictional text using that strategy? Does anybody have any questions about that? Okay, we're going to do a practice one today. The one thing that I want to make sure to drive home to you is the standard explicitly says you may not have any judgments or opinions. So if you felt like the story stunk, that's fine, but you don't include that in your summary. Does anybody have any questions about that? All right, we're going to watch the video link that is beside number 2. So number 1, we're skipping today. Beside number 2, underneath number 2, it says theme and summary practice. There is a link to a video. I'm going to show that here to the students. I'm going to pause the Zoom video. So if you're watching and this is not live, you need to pause the video and watch the video link, Jerry's game, that's linked on your assignment today. If you're watching in real time, you may either watch it live with us or minimize the Zoom and watch it yourself. It's up to you. It's not working, so nobody may be watching it. Somebody at home, click on that link to that video and tell me if you're getting it to work. And if you are, tell me in the chat, please. I did. All right, I'm pausing the video. We're going to watch Jerry's game and then follow back up with the theme and the summary of Jerry's game. Let's start with talking about the somebody wanted but so in Jerry's game. Who was the somebody? Raise your hand. Who was the somebody? Jerry. And what did Jerry want? What did Jerry want? Jerry wanted, to play chess. Jerry wanted to play chess and win, right? You agree? Good. But what was the problem? Somebody else. What was the problem? Right, he had no one to play with. So he played by himself. Excellent. Does anybody have any questions? So from that, from this, could you write a summary, a paragraph? Yes. First sentence. The story is about Jerry. He's the only character in the story. Jerry wanted to play chess and win. But, new sentence, he had no one to play with. So, Jerry played by himself and changed his character by his glasses and his teeth. He took out his teeth and took off his glasses and was a new person. Then he did the opposite. So he made himself a different person based on those attributes. Okay? Does that summarize that video? Yes. Using this strategy. All right, now let's switch gears. Because the standard that you're going to be tested on Monday is both theme and summary. What was the theme of Jerry's game? What's theme? Theme is the Message or moral that you can take and make you a better person. What is the theme? Somebody who's on live, type it in the chat. What's the theme of Jerry's game? Come on, guys. We got a lot to do. Okay, don't assume. Because when we were first watching it, we thought that there was probably 2. Someone in the chat, great job, said you can still have fun by yourself. I love that. Love that. Make the best of what you what? Yeah. You can still have fun by yourself. Make the best of what you have. Any questions about theme or summarizing practice with Jerry's game? Tomorrow we're going to talk about question stems, and then you're going to have your quiz on theme and summary on Monday. Good. Okay. We're going to jump right into narrative writing. Narrative. What is a narrative? What does the word narrative mean? Somebody type it in the chat. Somebody here? Yes, ma'am.
When I think of the word, I think of narrator.
Okay, you're exactly right. So you think of writing starts with an S. Story. I think of writing a story. Okay. This is the way I would like for you to plan your story. And I'm going to tell you more details about what your story is going to tell in just a minute. But first, I want to talk about how to plan a story, a narrative. When you're planning, you should include bare bones. This is not a time to write complete sentences. This is a time to write keywords, key phrases, triggering your mind as to what you want it to be about. This is not the time to write complete sentences. So I'm going to show you that in just a second. But first, let's talk about how we plan. I like my students to plan like this because it helps to organize information. This first long block is going to be paragraph. That sign right there means paragraph. It's going to be paragraph 1. Okay. This is going to be the introduction. This is going to help the reader to know what's going on, set the stage. We meet the characters, we get the setting. What is the other thing that we like to include in the introduction that grabs the reader's attention? What do you call that? Starts with an H. You go fishing with it. A hook. You want to have a hook. You want to grab their attention and pull them in, okay? So you're setting the stage, you're meeting the characters, you're hooking them in, you're making them want to keep reading. Then we're going to come to these 3 paragraphs. What do you think these 3 paragraphs are? The what? What do you call it? Starts with a B. The body, that's right. These are going to be your 3 body paragraphs. They're going to be the chunk of the action, okay? This is going to be the 2nd paragraph. This is going to be the 3rd paragraph. It's going to be the 4th paragraph. And you're going to have 3 main events that are going to happen here, okay? So this is going to be an event, and they're taking place in sequential order, but there are going to be 3 main events that happen in 3 separate paragraphs, okay? And then you would just put here what happened, the key event. You would not put a complete sentence. Does everybody understand that? This is a planning stage of the writing process. It's going to be very bare bones. It is not going to be complete sentences. Does everybody understand that? Okay. What do you think is going to go in this paragraph down here? The what? The end, right. So what do we call that in 6th grade? It's going to be paragraph 5. This is going to be the conclusion. Have you ever heard that word? This is going to be the conclusion. Everything is tied up in a nice, neat bow. The problem is solved. We find out where the characters are going to go for the future. There's closure. Does that make sense? Closure of the characters. Great job in the chat. Okay. Does anybody have any questions? Have you seen something like this before for planning an essay? Okay. What we're going to do now is I'm going to read you an essay, and we're going to work backwards. So we're going to read an essay from a student that I have taught before that wrote this essay, and we're going to work backwards. So from her essay, we're going to put it on the planning sheet to model for you what planning looks like. So we're going to go paragraph by paragraph. I'm going to get some tape to hold that down. We're going to go paragraph by paragraph to model for you what planning looks like. Okay? Now, before we start, and I read you, this example, let's talk about what your narrative essay prompt is going to be. When we left Bud in Bud Not Buddy, he was driving off in whose car? An old man that came out of the road. You are going to find out later that his name is Lefty Lewis, and he is driving off in his car because he thinks Bud thinks that this man is a yes, thank you in the chat. Great job. He is a vampire. Bud sees the blood in the back of his car and great job in the chat. Great job. He thinks that he is a vampire. So Bud has jumped in the car and is taken off with this man's car, driving it down the road because he thinks he is a vampire. So that's where your story that you're going to write is going to pick up. You're writing the next chapter in Bud Not Buddy as if this man really is a, you got it. All right, so I'm going to read you an excellent example, and we're going to work backwards to put it into planning. And then your job today, if we have time when we get back from the library, is going to be to start your own planning for your story that's going to pick up with Bud driving off in this man's car. Does that make sense? All right, so let's read a great example. I'm going to read the introductory paragraph, and we're going to pause. Man, could things possibly get any worse? I was just a kid minding my own business, and next thing you know, a few bad things happen, and before you can say Jack Robinson, my life turned into a nightmare. But I didn't have time to throw a pity party for myself just yet. My foot was pressed down on the gas pedal so hard that it hurt. I pretended I was a NASCAR driver, and I had one lap to go before I won the whole dang race. But after a while, that got pretty boring. I needed to focus on the situation at hand. There was a bloodthirsty vampire out there somewhere just waiting to suck my blood. Okay, introductory paragraph. What does she include? What do we need to include in the introduction? Okay, what was her hook? NASCAR. Good. So she said he was NASCAR. She said there was a vampire chasing. She set the stage that she's in the car. He's in the car. Bud's in the car. There's blood. So do you see how I'm writing words and key phrases that she could then turn into a paragraph? You're not writing the whole paragraph. You're just writing the bones. Does that make sense? Anything else that I need to include in that planning for that first paragraph? Yes. He was pressing the gas. It hurt. Good. All right. First body paragraph. I was on the lookout for any sign of civilization. Maybe a restaurant or something would be nice. I had to tell somebody about this vampire. I rode down the road just a little further. Uh-oh. The car was making a sound like it was about to cut right off. Thankfully, I could see what looked like a house or something wasn't that far away. Right when I was about to pull in the parking lot of what I now realized was an old hotel, I felt a bump on top of the car. It was that doggone vampire come to suck me dry as dead man's skeleton. But I wasn't about to panic or nothing because I knew exactly what I was about to do. What do I put in this box?
She lives you on a cliff where you don't know what it's on.
But what you're planning her essay. What's on her planning sheet? Where does she go in this event?
Like an old hotel.
Perfect. Exactly. So this here is an old hotel. Down a road to an old hotel. And then the vampire's where?
On top of the car.
On the car. Now, could you take that and turn it into a paragraph, just like what she did? Do you understand? Perfect. Next paragraph. I pulled the gear shift into the R position and mashed down on the gas. The car was still working, but it was only a quarter of a tank of gas left. When I had gone backwards for what seemed like 7 seconds, but felt like an eternity, but with what was 7 seconds, but felt like an eternity, I shifted into the F position real quick and pushed down on the gas. Man, if Bugs were here right now, he'd be laughing his head off. He'd say something like, Bud, did you see the way that vampire was looking when he flew off the car? And then I'd say, yeah, he looked like he just peed his pants or got shot or something. And then we would keep on like that for a good while. When I got close enough to the vampire that I could see he was still breathing, I jammed down the gas pedal and ran right over him, sped down the road, and didn't even think about slowing down until I could see the hotel. When I tried to pull into the parking lot, though, I ran into a tree. All right, what do we need to write? What did he do first? Okay, so he put it in reverse. He ran over. He slung him off first. So I'm going to put slung off. Then he ran him over. Then he headed to the, he's driving finally to the hotel, but what? He ran into a tree. Do you see how all I'm putting is phrases? I'm not putting sentences. I'm just planning it out. This should not take the full length of time it would take you to write an essay because all you're doing is getting your ideas down. Okay, third paragraph. The car was messed up pretty bad, but I wasn't real hurt. So I grabbed my suitcase, got my jackknife and at the ready, rushed out of the car and ran to the door of the hotel. Thankfully, the door was unlocked. I finally mustered up enough courage to put my right foot in the door. I told myself that it wasn't actually scary, that I didn't want to go home wherever that was, and before I could whip out and run away, I stepped into the hotel and closed the door, bolted it shut, and took a huge breath. Then I tried to think of what to do next. First, my eyes needed to adjust to the darkness. So where is he in this one? He's inside the hotel. Trying to get up courage and lock the door. Right? Awesome. Last paragraph. Hopefully our problem's going to be solved. I think she has more. She actually had 4 body paragraphs. So I'm just going to read the next body paragraph for we're not going to put it up here. Okay? After about 10 minutes of standing there, my eyes were almost fully adjusted, and I was standing in the lobby of the hotel. There was a desk with a bunch of drawers, and I decided to open one. When I looked inside of it, I could not believe my luck. There was a candlestick and one of those candle holders and a box of matches. I lit a candle and looked around some more. There was a couch that looked like it had been way back from 1492 when Columbus sailed the ocean blue. It was all green and super ugly. On the ground beside the couch, there was a book called Grimm Fairy Tales. Mama used to read these to me all the time. I turned to one of my favorites, Little Red Cap. When Mama read this to me, it came time for the lesson. She'd always say, Now, Bud, the moral of the story is you should never talk to strangers. And then I tell her I understood, even though I had no idea what a moral was. All right, that was her. So if we were to add a paragraph here, it would say the couch, Grimm's fairy tales, the candlestick getting the light so he could see, right? All right, now we're going to go down here to the conclusion. Right when I got to the part where the wolf eats the grandma, I heard a sound like wind gusts blowing through the curtains. And I looked up, and lo and behold, there was the vampire. Here we go again. This time, I didn't even try to fight. I grabbed my stuff and quick as anything was out the window. The car was where I left it, broke and unfixable, so I kept on running. I ran down the road until my legs felt like they were on fire. I stopped to rest on the trunk of a nearby tree, and I finally decided I could just climb it and wait out the rest of the night there. I sure hope vampires can't climb trees. So what happened in the conclusion? Okay, good. He left the hotel. Okay, he went running. So when we leave this story, the resolution or the conclusion is that he's going to wait out in the tree, and it ends. Okay? Does everybody see how I went from a great essay that follows directions exactly how I was expecting it to this planning? Okay, really quickly, I want to make one more anchor chart. I like to call, in education, when we do stuff, we call things best practices. That just means that's the best way of doing things. So let's talk about when you're writing Lefty Lewis is a vampire, that's the man's name. We're going to talk about best practices. So what are some things that you need to make sure that you include in your Lefty Lewis is a vampire, things that you need to make sure you include when you start writing? Okay, you're going to include the car. You're going to include 5 paragraphs. You're going to pick up, beside the car, you're going to pick up right when what ends? Chapter 10 ends. So if you are writing, you may need to go back and read that last page of Bud Not Buddy to refresh your memory, because you're picking up right at the end, okay? What is something that this author that I read you an example of did that really added to it? She did what? She had key details, but what did she include that was similar to Christopher Paul Curtis? Yes, she used dialogue. She said, if Bugs was here, da-da-da-da-da. She used dialogue. Did that add to the text experience for you as a reader? Absolutely, absolutely. Did she write in the same style as Christopher Paul Curtis? Yes. So she used the style of Christopher Paul Curtis. Absolutely. She said very at the beginning, she said she uses doggone, she refers to mama, she refers to Bugs. So this author, when she wrote it, she stayed in the same style as Christopher Paul Curtis, which added to the text experience because it's in the same style as chapters 1 through 10. Does that make sense? As a 6th grader, how many sentences need to be in a paragraph? Minimum. Minimum 5 sentences in a paragraph. If you have more, that's great, but you need to have at least 5. All right, what we're doing today is planning your essay. It is shared with you on Canvas. All you have to do is click on that blue button. Be sure not to make a copy. Canvas automatically makes a copy for you when you click on that link. If you make a copy when you go to submit it, it will not be your work. So that whole file, make a copy and share with Ms. Russell. Canvas takes that out of the equation so that we no longer have to do that. Okay? Does anybody have any questions to put in the chat before I end? Or the word of the day is vampire.